People keep asking me why I wear a hat indoors. Hey, what's going on guys? Shane here. So I'm super excited for today's video because we get to watch some fight footage of my very first boxing match, which I've never seen before. I got a call from my mom the other day and she's like, I was cleaning out the house and I found this DVD that says Shane's boxing match on it. So I turned it on and the quality's great. I was like, really? That's awesome, because the only footage I've ever seen of this fight was blurry. It was like from deep within the crowd and you couldn't even tell what was going on. So she had my brother upload it and send it over to me. So we're gonna watch it together. We're gonna review it. I'm gonna critique myself. And then at the end, I wanna share with you the one major takeaway, the one thing that I've learned since this fight, which was nearly 10 years ago, that I think really separates novice from high-level combat thinking. And I think it's really gonna help you guys out. So without further ado, let's watch the fight. Front Street Boxing Gym, man, this place made you feel like you were on a movie set. Just had that old school, dingy boxing club vibe. Look, you can see all the walls are covered in old fight posters. There's buckets hanging from the ceiling to catch the leaking rainwater. In fact, I believe they filmed some scenes from the movie Creed here, the Rocky movie. So this fight is from January 2011 against Frankie Ellaby, and I remember not being particularly nervous for this fight because it was about 6 months after my Muay Thai fight in Thailand, and I remember thinking, well, at least I don't have to worry about getting kicked or kneed or elbowed in the head, so it should be a lot less painful. Here's my coach Joe Jesus on the right there, and I want to give a shout out to Jack Costello Boxing Club, who I'm representing here, a non-profit, donation-based gym, great gym in Northeast Philadelphia. So here we go, round one. Fade out to the right, and then pump 2 left jabs as I come out to the left. So already creating angles. Remember, that was always our thing. Never throw jabs. Moving forward, always cut an angle. And Frankie stays very long and light and relaxed. You notice he's kind of just touching me early. He's using his probes, not overcommitting to anything. And Frankie had a little bit more experience. And you can see that as this fight carries on. So I'm pushing forward, and I continue to do that throughout the fight, putting the pressure on. Stepping in with the double jab, trying to loosen up the shoulders and my legs, because at this point I'm probably feeling that lactic acid build up in my shoulders, getting a little stiff, and I know I got 2.5 rounds left. In amateur boxing, it's about who lands more punches, right? Who gets the better of the exchange, but these exchanges can get a little chaotic. You got to prove to the judges that you won the exchange. So here's a good one. I throw a double jab right hand left, and Frankie does a great job evading it, but I catch him with that left hook. And at the very end, he throws a punch and misses. So it's kind of safe to say that the judges probably saw I won that exchange. I land a jab, I land a right hand to the body. So I'm feeling good here. I'm grooving, gaining some momentum. And he's got to be thinking, all right, I got to get some points back. Looking back on this fight, I noticed that I stayed in one mode the entire time. And I continued doing that for my first couple of fights. I was still finding my style, which is obvious. I mean, it's my first fight here. But it was a lot of forward pressure with built-in defense like that right there. So I fake the jab, then I take my head off line and throw a jab to the body. Or I'll just step forward with constant head movement, rolling underneath of punches, trying to close off the range and get close enough for hooks and uppercuts. However, when you're a one-trick pony and you don't make adjustments, you'll get figured out by a skilled opponent. And what Frankie does is he starts landing his uppercut more. He finds his range with his jab, and he lands his uppercut more, which is funny because my style, and I definitely had influence from Tyson, who famously got beat by Douglas with that jab and that uppercut. But watch the timing here. Frankie's right hand comes over top of my jab, fades out to the left, and lands a nice uppercut and makes me miss. So very nice exchange there on his part. Frankie finding his range with the jab. I step in, he catches me with the right uppercut. I may have landed 2 punches there, but I missed the last one. Not a good look. I want my points back. Again, Frankie finds his range. He's waiting for me to roll forward, but I catch on and instead revert back to my other entry, double jab. How would you guys score that round? Thought it was a close one. I'd give the edge to Frankie, but am I being too humble or am I being honest? Let me know. All right, here we go, round 2. Again, I enter, double jab, bop, bop. I like that I actually step back there. I think that's like the first time you see me step back. And that's the thing, we didn't practice much evasions. We didn't practice how to fight moving backwards. I didn't know much about ring generalship, which is pretty much like leading the pace of the fight. And my understanding of ring control was way off. Like right there, like I shouldn't have moved. I should have kept him cornered. If I'm a pressure fighter, I want to get him into the corner, but oftentimes I give him a way out. I didn't learn about cutting angles in the sense of stopping where they can move next. I was more focused about just getting close enough to hit him, or getting close enough or getting in at an angle that was advantageous, as opposed to where are our placements of our bodies in relation to the entire ring. So I know I talked a lot right there, but that's a really important takeaway from this as you continue to watch this round. Like that right there. Never should have shifted to my left. Frankie racking up points in this round, definitely taking the lead, and I would say it's mostly because of that. It's because of the ring generalship. I'm fighting his fight. He's setting the pace. Now, ref stops it here because of that right hand that landed to the back of my head. But I think I was partially at fault for that because I was dipping my head so low, and I blame that because of leg fatigue. Started to hinge at the low back as opposed to squatting, and started leaning over a little bit. Caught him with a nice right hand there. Frankie sort of takes a rest here. I think the pressure that I was putting on him, I kind of zapped a little bit of his energy. And you can see that I start landing more punches as I come forward. He's kind of catching his breath, not throwing as much, fading backwards, a little more defense. The thing is, I continue to throw. He's weathering the storm. So my energy is zapping. I'm catching him. I mean, don't get me wrong, definitely catching him with heavier shots. But I was more reliant on my power than I was outboxing someone. Again, he's just touching me. They're not heavy shots. Landed a nice left hand to the body there, though. So this is pretty competitive round here. This would be a hard one to score. I'd say the beginning half of this round was definitely Frankie's, but that end there, not sure I did enough to steal the round. But proud of you, young man. Look pretty good, Shane. All right, here we go. Third and final. It's all respect. Again, double jab, head off line. But again, it was the exact same entry that I did in the first two rounds. Gotta have different ways of stepping in. And a nice jab. Good head movement. He crashes the range, which negates my ability to land any solid hooks or uppercuts. But based on the emotion of the crowd, you can tell it's a close competitive fight. Another thing I noticed is just how heavy I am on my feet as compared to Frankie, who's much lighter, which definitely plays to his advantage against my style. I hear someone in the crowd say, Shane, you gotta let your hands go, let's go. And all I can think is, man, have I not? So now I'm really stepping in, but just committing to the same plan, just a little bit more, but I'm already fatigued. So now I start to get a little clumsy, I get a little sloppy, while Frankie is just touching me. He's just scoring points. You know, like, I never felt in danger. I never felt hurt or anything. He may have, but the point is, he's just racking up the points. He's just touching me. He's conserving his energy. He's more accurate. Catch him with a nice right uppercut, left jab here, to which he tries to clinch. I think this one may have hurt him a little bit. And I'm like, no, it's the only chance I got. I know I'm losing this fight, so I try to break and step back in. But again, I get caught 3 punches there, and I think I land 1. So again, even if I'm landing the more powerful punches, even if I'm doing more damage, the judge is saying, all right, he landed 3, Shane landed 1, Frankie won the better of the exchange. So you got to think about it in, especially with amateur boxing, as points. Now I'm really looking clumsy, really reaching, trying to relax. My jaw's open. A little bit in panic mode here. You know, trying to do damage. I think the only way that I can win this now if I'm down 2 rounds is to finish him. So I'm loading up a little bit more on the shots. But again, this is why I stress to you guys so much about, like, don't rely on power. And this is kind of why the heavy bag can create bad habits, because the thing doesn't move. You're always standing right in front of it. You can always have a perfect, powerful punch. But when you're going against a guy who's constantly moving, constantly sticking a jab in your face and making you miss, it's going to be way different. That's why you got to train like you fight, or train like you intend to fight, rather. And these days I rely on different tools, just a lot more shadow boxing, the double end bag, partner flow drills, and isolated sparring, as opposed to just only hard sparring, which is way more damaging to the brain. But all in all, like I said, I'm proud of young Shane right here. I think I did a really good job. But one thing I want to say is, people always ask, like, where I find my source of motivation, and it's just that constant state of evolution. I always want to know that I can beat my former self. And watching this footage, I feel confident in saying I could. So I encourage you to adopt that same ideology. All right, guys, there you have it. That was my first amateur boxing match from nearly 10 years ago. That was the Mid-Atlantic Tournament, which is a pretty high-level amateur boxing tournament here in the States. I think about a month later, I went to fight in the Golden Gloves. I suffered back-to-back losses. My first 2 fights, close decisions, going against guys with more boxing experience than me. But after that, then I actually moved up in weight. I started fighting guys bigger than me, but I had a lot more success. I started gaining momentum, started racking up wins on my record, and learning from my mistakes that I had made in my first couple of fights. So the one thing that I want to share with you, which was my biggest takeaway in reviewing this footage, was ring generalship. And we talked about this briefly in the fight, but I want to touch on this a little bit more. I was introduced to this concept later in my career, and I actually did a video with Chris Algieri, former WBO junior welterweight champion, here in the fightTIPS gym a couple of years ago, and he did a video talking about ring generalship. He talked about just because you're the one moving backwards doesn't necessarily mean that you're the one losing the fight, right? If you're moving backwards, but you're the one landing the punches, think about like the old Rocky films. Rocky would be moving forward, but he'd be getting jabbed the whole time. So just because you're moving backwards doesn't mean you're losing. Just because you're moving forward and putting the pressure on doesn't mean you're winning. What matters is who's landing the punches, who's got the higher percentages, who's controlling the pace, who's controlling the style, who's controlling the tactics of the fight. So that's what ring generalship is. If you Google it, the actual definition is it's the ability of a boxer to dictate the pace, style, and tactics of a bout in regards to his opponent. And the way that really like made this click for me is the metaphor of, think about, for those of you that have played video games, when you go up against the boss, no matter what video game we're talking about, it could be an old school video game like Mario, or it could be Mega Man, for those of you who are Mega Man fans, huge Mega Man fan, but any game that has a boss at the end. When you first fight the boss, the first 30 seconds or so are super hard because you're still trying to figure out what his patterns are, what his tactics are. Usually you die the first time, and if you have an extra life, then you get to fight him again. Usually do a little bit better the second time because you figured him out, right? If you notice that every time he charges up with this big club in his hand and you run towards him and you get whacked with it, you're gonna lose. But if you know that when he winds up, you need to back up, you need to evade it, and then you catch him when he's over here off balance, these are the tactics. Now, it's not going to be that exaggerated in a boxing match. Everything is a little bit more calculated. But again, Frankie figured me out. He noticed that I was a pressure fighter early on, so he kept his range. He used straight punches, jabs and crosses, trying to figure out what my tactics were. Then he started to notice, okay, he likes to enter with rolling his head. So he likes to get underneath of shots, roll his head, and try to get into hook range. So he started to force me to move my head with the jab. When I would get underneath, then he would time the uppercut. All right, then I started reverting to the double jab again. I started double jab, high and low, and I had a little bit more success with that just because the jab is harder to defend against. But still, I only had two ways of entering as a pressure fighter. That's no good. You have to be able to give different looks. You have to be able to confuse and trick your opponent, because once they figure you out, unless you get lucky, they're going to beat you. All right, they're going to pick you apart. They're either going to sit you down, knock you out, or they're going to take you to a decision, which you're going to lose. All right, so I wish I could give you like the one secret tip to win any boxing match, but it really just comes down to practice and high IQ. You got to get the reps in. You got to train hard. You got to be in peak physical conditioning, but you also have to have that high IQ level. You have to understand that you need to beat your player in this mental game of chess. It's a physical and mental game of chess where the person who figures the other person out first and can make them fight their fight, whoever can do that is going to win. All right, so you have to be able to have a plan A through Z, not just a plan A, because if that doesn't work, you're screwed. All right, so if this kind of talk interests you, if you're starting to get into this higher level thinking or not, or even if you're just a beginner and you want to avoid making the mistakes that I made, I put all of this together in a curriculum on fightTIPS.com. So we talk about forming strategies, we talk about strength and conditioning, we talk about stretching, we talk about technique, we talk about flow drills that you can do with a partner, solo drills, footwork, everything that I wish I had known when I had first started, I lay it out for you guys on fightTIPS.com. And if you don't like what you see on there, you can cancel your membership within the first 14 days and you won't get charged anything at all. All right, so check it out. Nothing to lose. Click the link down in the description below. Become a member on fightTIPS.com. You can get direct contact with me. I can review your footage. I can give you critiques on the forum. You can connect with the other fighters on the forum. And like I said, you get unlimited access to all of our courses on there. All right, any questions, leave them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, I'm Shane with fightTIPS. We're the underdogs. That's you guys.